Welcome into another edition of Gas. I am Gresh. He is Jason Anik.
You were playing everybody and we're winning the game last night.
The head coach is fighting people on the sideline.
What do you got for me?
I know you're a part of the Tight Pants Society.
No fucking way is that a gimme, right?
Let's go! Here we are with another edition of Gas, everyone. It is the Gresh Anik Show. We've got you each and every Tuesday. And boy, oh boy, is there a lot to talk about. So much Bruins news to get to. No, I'm only playing just to see Jay's face drop when I mention something other than football. How are you there, Dirty Boxing?
I'm doing good, buddy. And since you said dirty boxing, I just wanted to publicly say thank you to you, buddy, because you helped me in more ways than one that week. My voice is coming back a little bit, which you can tell, but I didn't have much of a voice. Not a big deal, but yeah, I was kind of under the weather. You helped me in that regard. Also gave me some great feedback in terms of constructive stuff that I could use in the broadcast. And I'll keep what you told me private, but what I want to tell you publicly is I felt as though the note you gave me was the one thing I needed the most work on that maybe no one had told me. Well, no one's told me much of anything in terms of notes, but also something that as soon as you said it, I was like, yeah, that's something I'm struggling with, but I couldn't actually put into words that it was something I'm struggling with. So thank you. Love you. Your support was felt down in Nashville, Tennessee. Bro.
Oh, no problem at all. And, when I think of you, you were in private business, you know what I mean? And then your brother takes off and you're a part of his business. But, the Jason Anik business is its own thing and you're building your brand. But you know what you're also doing? And I've told you this, you're also kind of playing catch up. Whereas when I was 20, I was arguably the youngest person on air in a top 35 market whenever I started at 21 years old doing morning drives. So I've done this forever. You're kind of playing catch up because you were in a whole different field. So I hope there are people to pull you aside and say, hey man, do this, do that, think of this, think of that, because you're talented enough to jump the line right away. And it's happening. The Dirty Boxing broadcast, it kind of was what it was, but I'll tell you this, the way people kind of persevere through some of those shows a lot of their chops. And that's what you did in that Dirty Boxing broadcast. I'm sure they look back on self-reflect and go, wow, we got a ways to go to clean up the show. You are clearly not one of them. And the fights are pretty entertaining at the end of the day. Like, Jay, that's the other thing too. Put on a good product and people will forget about the other stuff.
Well, exactly. That's the rub. The fights were great. The technical issues were vast. I won't even begin to go there.
It happens.
The first three shows were all in Miami. We took the show on the road to Nashville, Tennessee. I could talk out of both sides of my mouth. I think Dirty Boxing has accomplished a great amount in just 4 shows. But I always say in some of these building promotions, if there's 1,500 details, let's say they get 1,000 of them right. Mm-hmm. But, main event, Gable Steveson, I mean, how about that? Right? He's probably going to be jumping right into the UFC. That fight was incredible. I just want to say one name here so you can remember this name always.
Please do.
Montavious Ware. He's the most pure boxer we had seen yet in Dirty Boxing. And Andre Berto was on the call with us. And what's interesting, and for those who don't know, Andre Berto was a great welterweight back in the day. Really that third guy underneath Floyd Mayweather, Manny Pacquiao, for those boxing fans out there. But what I feel as though he said in the fighter meeting sort of opened my mind about Dirty Boxing. And it's talking about sort of the boxers ultimately rising to the top and the very skilled boxers being able to take care of the mixed martial artists that come in here because they're just be so technically sound. And Montavious Ware put on a show, best pure boxer we've seen. I could go on and on about Dirty Boxing. It was a great night. But I know we got Pigskin to talk about.
Yeah, no, I know. I know we do, but it is interesting. You could tell when someone like now MMA and the fight game has been so splintered in a lot of ways. Just like when you get in the octagon, you could tell when someone's a great Sambo, practitioner. They're just going to drag you down and not let you back up. It's kind of the same thing with the really skilled boxers, right? Everybody is taught to throw hands in the MMA game, but there are very few who can apply the boxing technique to it. And I love that you brought that up, Jay, because even in UFC, it stands out. when somebody
Yes.
is a very technical fighter and they
Bingo.
understand angles and how to kind of, get in on certain guys. What is the lead story in your sports world today, Jay, as we get going here on a Tuesday morning?
Well, I'm glad you asked. And I honestly, Gresh, at some point I have to talk to you about Game 7 in baseball briefly on this 1-hour program. But my lead story, we got to shout out our guy, Mercedes Big Dog Lewis, who just made his appearance for the Denver Broncos in what is now his 20th National Football League season. It's just profound. And for someone who's 47 years old, I've gotten to know him a little bit. I know Cody Merrill's gotten to know him because he's a huge UFC fan. I met him a couple times. I actually met Aaron Rodgers and Mercedes Lewis at the same time. But Mercedes Lewis, man, it's like I have so much respect for how he conducts himself, how he treats people. I could go on, but just the fact that he's made a roster and now he's on a roster that maybe has a chance to compete for a Super Bowl, just couldn't be happier for him. 41 years old, oldest player in Broncos history, and I think the oldest tight end in NFL history. It goes on. And I don't know about longevity, but maybe there is a spot in that in the hallowed Hall of Fame for a guy like that to play 20 seasons at that position.
I was trying to think as you were saying that, Jay, who are the guys that almost made it 2 decades, right? Like you think of Matt Slater's dad, Jackie Slater, as a left tackle. I do believe played like 18 years in the league or something like that. Like I worked with Fourier, who made it through 13. And that sounds like a really, like you have a 13-year career in the NFL. You feel like you 20 years, my God. And it's crazy. This is probably a window into my mind. All I'm thinking about is because I've had other players tell me before, like when you put in your retirement papers, you get $100,000 for every year you played in the NFL, right? So Mercedes Lewis not only gets a nice chunk, but 20 years in that whole pension plan and stuff like that. This guy's set, and good for him. Like a lot of people speak very highly of Mercedes Lewis. And bro, to your point, I don't care if you're a long snapper. If you make it 20 years in the NFL, you have really, truly done something. You know what, Jay, to your point, maybe those guys aren't all good enough to get in, but maybe what they can do is have like the 20-year club in a little portion of the Hall of Fame. Right. These were the guys who played 20 years in the most brutal sport in the world.
Yeah. So I didn't intend to go here, but I have to. And I know we come at you on a Tuesday, and I know Game 7 of the World Series was Saturday night. Gresh, I'm not trying to be hyperbolic. I've thought about this before I said it. I think it's the greatest game I've ever seen. I know there's a little recency bias, but my wife is from Los Angeles. I happen to be watching with her. And I have gotten to know a lot of Canadian sports handicappers and friends over the last decade, right? So while I'm definitely sort of rooting LA, I'm rooting for some Toronto folks that I know. And what I want to tell you about my wife, she's not a diehard sports fan, but she's into certain things and definitely tapped into my life, so is a good person to talk sports with. Her dad from Los Angeles is a diehard Clippers fan, does not like the Lakers. So in 2010, when the Celtics were, my wife and I have been together 23 years. When we were together in 2010, watching the Celtics versus the Lakers in Game 7, and the Celtics almost beat the Lakers, and the Lakers won. My wife was so upset that the Celtics lost. She was rooting hard for the Celtics, not for the Lakers. For me, and became a Celtics fan, loved KG. Her behavior, I was almost embarrassed in front of our friends at my wife's behavior when the Celtics lost. So as Toronto is starting to win in Game 7, my wife is like, I'm going to go in the other room, right? She didn't. And I was like, I love you, sweetheart. Is this because you're kind of like your dad and you're going to be a bad sport here? And she's like, yeah. So she's about to go in the other room. And then I think Muncie hits the home run, right? So that it's 4-3.
So it's right? So it's 4-3. That's right.
And so I'm just like, so she sort of like puts her headphones in. She's not really watching. To make a long story short, I didn't have a voice, Gresh, right? So I'm trying not to scream at all these moments in this game. I'm like ripping my shirt off at different moments, but I'm not sure I've ever seen a fan base, a team be that close that many times to winning a championship and just not. I mean, I know I'm rambling, but were you not blown away? Were you watching that? I didn't watch a moment of MMA. I was locked.
You know what? I was actually watching the MMA, and let me back it up and tell you a little story. So Saturday morning, I do national radio on Mad Dog Sports Radio. Now, Mad Dog Russo might be the last person on earth who talks baseball nationally, right? So that Saturday morning, there's the big game 6, and we got to get it. So I started the show talking about LSU. I got text messages and phone calls pretty quick from people that I work with being like, "You're not talking the World Series? What the hell are you doing?" So that lets you know my mindset, like going in. And then it was 3 hours and 45 minutes of all different, all the stuff from that game, the ball getting wedged in the wall, a lot of talk about that. How in the world do we avoid that? I mean, I think it's a good, Buck Showalter said, we're a multi-billion-dollar industry and we're still piecing it together like Legos. Like, what are we doing here? Why is that even a thing? And then that game 7, Jay, honest to God, I didn't come to it until it was 4-4. I saw it get tied 4-4, and then I was kind of in on the rest after that because I'm like, oh, Ohtani might. I was more focused, Jay, on Ohtani than anything else in this series, I admit, but I ultimately came around in the end because Game 6 was pretty good. Game 7 was even better. And for Toronto, wow, all the weenies in Squid Square now. Like whenever the Bruins play the Maple Leafs, Jay, and they always go to Squid Square on the outside of the arena in Toronto. Oh yeah, I couldn't pay the loony to get in, so I'm gonna stand here and yell like everybody else. Screw Toronto, screw them.
Wait.
I know, I'm being mean.
Wait. No. Hilarious. But hold on. I understand the screw Toronto, but I want to talk to you about these fans, right? Because and I know that as a national sports radio host for as long as you have, I wouldn't call you like a fan the way I would most people, right? Even though maybe you are like a Boston sports fan. But as a Boston sports fan, I feel privileged. I feel like I've gotten to celebrate so many different things that I always feel like if something bad happens to a Boston team, kind of deserved it. The good comes with the bad. But for some of these fans, one in particular, my guy, Ian McMillan, who's a sharp sports handicapper, works for Sports Illustrated. If you know him.
I know who you're talking about.
He's an Atlanta Falcons fan. Okay. And he's a Canadian Toronto fan. And he was borderline tears on his Twitter, on his X. I found the need to message him directly on X. But Gresh, do you not can you imagine being a Blue Jays fan in the building? Like, bro, behind home plate toward the end of that game, like they looked like they were in a horror movie, I mean,
there was also, did you notice the weird guy and it might have been game 6. There was a guy in a blue, like golf, almost like quarter zip. And he's just going like this. He's like standing behind home plate. And he's like waving his arms. It was very odd. It was game 6 because I remember talking about it on the radio. I don't know what happened in game 7, but it's really funny, Jay, because behind home plate early in the series, there was a guy who had like a white t-shirt on and it said, "I bet on them." And then it just said, "You?" ? And that was it. And then there was the guy behind home plate trying to is an old man. He had no idea, but he might've been cocked. I don't know. He's just waving his hands back there. You're right. There is the weirdness, but doesn't that, like, having a little empathy for Toronto like you do, doesn't that just make the Patriots come back against Atlanta 28-3 more delicious? And the reason I say that is you saw the pain on the faces of the Toronto fans. And they were this close to winning the thing, right? Imagine if they were up 9-0 and the Dodgers came back and won 10-9 in extra innings. That's what New England did to Atlanta. So when you get into the slow singing and flower bringing when it comes to fans, it absolutely makes me enjoy that Atlanta Super Bowl more, because you can look at the disappointment on all the faces of those Canucks up there. They were completely devastated. And when you have a lead for the majority of the game the way they do and lose it in the end, that's like getting knifed in the liver. You just know you're dead.
Oh, well, and when you think about from a Patriots fan perspective, 28-3, couple years prior, you had ripped victory from the jaws of defeat against the Seattle Seahawks in the Super Bowl and gotten your 4th ring. So I just feel like we're so fortunate overall. And I guess for these fans, how close do you get to tasting a win before you end up losing, right? And to me, there were moments where that ball in the gap where Kike gets decked by Pages and on the center field. There are moments as a Blue Jays fan where whether you're in the building or on TV where you are just, I mean, talk about champagne in the locker room. You could argue that not only should the champagne be in the locker room, it should be opened and you should already be drinking it. That's how they should have won this game. And for a fan base and a nation that's that starved, they haven't won the Stanley Cup since '93 either in all of Canada, right? So it is so Gresh. But I will say with you, the drama of the losing fan base to me is riveting. Even though I feel for the individuals. I mean,
if that game is in Chavez Ravine, it has a different feel, like in part to your point, like as a fan watching, right? If that's the Dodgers at home and they're cheering for the team to come back, it's not there isn't the story as there is. We had the lead. We blew it. We even blew it in the ninth, and then we blew it again. And then, the fans go home drinking all that Labatt's.
And Cody says, especially when their window is now closed for 15 years with Roman Anthony. And that's sort of tongue in cheek. But what I'll say, Gresh, hard to fucking get back there, right?
No, the Red Sox are proving that, right?
And any team, Toronto Blue Jays, Vladimir Guerrero Jr., love you. Love everything about you. Mm-hmm. Best of luck getting back to the World Series. Best of luck getting back to the World Series and having an opportunity to win a fourth game. It's really hard in pro sports,
Well, and you know what it does too? That series, like when Kike Hernandez catches the ball in left field and throws it to second base for the double play to end the game. You know what it reminds me of the kinds of people you need on a roster, right? We as fans focus on number one starters, big hitter in the middle of the lineup. You couldn't pay that guy enough money to make that play. Like that was such a clutch veteran. I've been here. I understand the moment type. And it's great that the Red Sox are young, but they're all either going to have to grow up together and make mistakes and make it to the playoffs to make those mistakes, or you got to mix in some of the Kikes of the world. And I think that's where, you and I have kivitzed over a lot of Bregman over the year, but the Red Sox need one or two. Like the watching that series reminded me, you need a couple of mid-level veterans who've sort of been there and done that to sort of help you, and then to manage those moments in the game. I wasn't the biggest Kike Hernandez fan when he was here in Boston, Jay, but I've come to respect those type of guys.
Absolutely.
Who'd make those plays in the postseason.
Bro, the stories are endless, and I didn't intend to do this, but how about Don Mattingly in the Blue Jays dugout, right? Still ringless, given all his travels in Major League Baseball. It's unbelievable. It's profound. The collapse, you're up 3-2 going back home. If you had tickets to 6 or 7, and these moments that it'll be very interesting how many years it will be before the Toronto Blue Jays win a World Series. Anyway. I know. And
you know what? And I know we're going to move on too, but Cody Merrill just threw in the chat about Denny Hamlin, because I was watching the championship race from Phoenix, and how about this, right? So Denny Hamlin is in the lead. There's just a couple laps to go. They end up throwing a caution, right? So now it comes down to strategy. Are you taking 2 tires or 4 tires? The people behind Hamlin took 2. He took 4. Jay, he led like 270 laps of a 300-lap race on Championship Sunday, and then boom, gone. He comes in second, all because of it wasn't even a bad pit stop. It was pit strategy. So, a lot of different ways that you can sort of lose in sports. The problem is they're not going through the crowd showing the Denny Hamlin fans who are slow singing and flower bringing the way they were in Toronto, where you couldn't avoid it. There were people just melting in their seats when that thing was all said and done. And by the way, it also goes to show you can sign like the wrong pitcher out of Japan, right? Lots of teams have signed Japanese pitchers, but Yoshinobu Yamamoto stood out above the rest and was even better than Ohtani in this series. It goes to show you can bring in the foreign imports, but you got to get the right ones. Jay, I'm just coming around on this whole MMA betting scandal story. I know we've had issues in Major League Baseball. I know we have an active investigation with the federal government going on in terms of the NBA. But there's been a serious controversy following a suspicious fight at UFC Vegas 110 this past Saturday. Featherweight Isaac Dulgarian entered the bout as a big favorite, submitted in the first round by Yadir Devali. I hope I got that right. The loss was immediately called into question. UFC commentator Michael Chiesa lambasted the performance as absolute trash and F performance, while several major sportsbook took the extraordinary step of refunding all bets based on Dulgarian to win. So there's some suspicious activity going on. There are other fights that have been flagged. Jay, where do you kind of land on this? Like, I almost don't even know how to process all this.
Oh, it's very difficult to find the words, so I guess Dulgarian's odds, he was minus 250, went down to minus 154. And then the first round knockout prop, I think opportunities to maybe bet on his opponent at plus 850 or whatever it is. So the first thing that pops into my head as I try to compartmentalize this, and I'm really doing it on the fly with
me too,
here, is we've heard Ray Longo, longtime regular on the Anik and Florian podcast, longtime 4-time championship MMA coach, has talked a lot about inevitabilities in being aware of certain injuries, let's say. Forget gambling. The fighter's got a shoulder. Nobody goes into a fight 100%. The fighter's got a shoulder, whatever it is. And not contextually talking about sports gambling, but more inside information, right? And you can be sure my brother does not have a lot of inside information. Certain people have inside information about certain fights, and what they do with that information is what's paramount. No pun intended. Think Dana White likes this headache as they move into this new Paramount deal? But so Ray Longo's points are well taken. And inevitably, as a coach, he might have a fighter going into a fight and he knows the guy's going to make the walk and get the money. And he may be a little bit banged up, right? Is Ray Longo running to tell people to put hundreds of thousands on the opponent if he thinks maybe his guy may? No. And could his guy get it done in that spot? Potentially, yes. But fixing of fights or sports in any capacity, and the fact that this is on the heels of Terry Rozier and Chauncey Billups, we have a heightened sense of awareness about this stuff anyway. Cody may be a better person to talk to about some of this stuff. James Krause, if you recall, MMA coach, called into question a few years back and some of his fighters going into fights injured and betting lines swinging. Until we get more information, Gresh, it's hard for me to know how to compartmentalize this, but I come back to what Dana said. Is it worth it for anyone? Any type of significant action is going to be flagged, and the idea that you're going to make life-changing money in any way, fighter, athlete, coach, gambler, insider, I find it hard to believe.
Yeah, I also think that's why Dana White isn't freaking out, because a lot like the NBA and that curious activity and Major League Baseball, the fail safes are sounding alarms on a lot of these bets, right? That's why, let's remember this. Before the FBI got involved with Terry Rozier, it was the gambling kind of watchdogs.
Yep.
Who went to the NBA and said, yo, you might have something here. And then the NBA dropped the ball, didn't investigate, and then it went from there. Here's a part of the problem for MMA. Other sports put out injury reports. So when you think of, because right now for me, Jay, for my money, we have 7, in my opinion, 7 major sports in this country. We have the NFL, the NBA, the NHL, MLB. Those are easy, right? And then you have the UFC, NASCAR, and the PGA Tour. I know it's been split by LIV, but you get the essence of what I'm saying there. How many of those leagues put out injury reports before games, and how many don't? Now, again, when you're betting on NASCAR, it's very different. When you're betting on golf, yes, it is very different. Excuse me, information might not be as important, but it's no different than when I had a friend who was on Patriots Radio Network, and every game day he had a buddy who bet, and every game day it was, Here's who didn't warm up. Here's who's in a boot. Here's who was working with Moses Cabrera before the game. It's all the information superhighway. And that's the thing. So if you're on a broadcast crew, right, and you have a friend who bets but is not making $1 million wagers and getting flagged and stuff like that. If you're a camera guy and you're there for the setup day on Friday and you happen to see a little bit of practice and you see that a certain someone was sitting out, right? If you send along as the cameraman that information to your friend and then it just kind of goes from there, are you doing anything untoward, but you're still affecting the betting market in some ways, right? Because you may have the knowledge that someone might be out. You know who doesn't issue the injury reports and where they've had issues with this before is college football. There's going to be a push for college football to ultimately start doing injury reports the way the NFL does. And that is, to me, Jay, the one sort of hang up for me when I'm thinking about UFC and MMA. How do they reconcile that? They never will. So to your point, some guys might go to the octagon with a compromised hand and they know they're not going to be able to throw their right hand, but they're not going to bail out because A, those guys need the money, and B, are you really, are you throwing the fight? No. But it would be like a quarterback playing who's a right-handed thrower playing with a left-handed left shoulder separation. Like, oh, he can play. It might affect the game, but am I doing anything skullduggerous? And that's sort of the gray area that I see sort of moving forward for all of these sports is that should you do an injury update or should you do something? But if you're an MMA fighter, you're not going to disclose that because someone's going to attack it. Whereas in the NFL, you better get it out there because you're messing with the injury report.
Well, and some of these things we're talking about are inevitabilities, and I took it down that road with the injury stuff. But certainly there were some moments in this particular fight where it looked to the not even trained eye a little bit fishy, as if someone was not maybe trying to properly defend themselves.
It was more took a flop than it was, trying to make it look good. And then, I got cinched up. I made a mistake.
And the can of worms is huge, but I just keep coming back to it. I just don't think there's enough money in it. And to your point, these sports, you're going to flag this stuff.
Yes.
4 or 5 years ago, right? It was probably the time to do this stuff. But I've been gambling on sports my whole life, and my brother's supremely close to the UFC. I don't bet on that. I think I'm not even allowed to. But you wouldn't believe how many sharp handicappers that will remain nameless love to message me the day of these UFC fight cards. And it's not because they think I'm a sharp MMA handicapper. It's because they're trying to get an edge on some sort of information that I may know. And you can be sure if I know anything, it's not being disclosed, even to close friends of mine. And 99% of the time, I got nothing anyway.
Well, I think if we can go back to, our close personal friend, William Hoodsworth Belichick, this is why he was so limiting on information, because I really think, Jay, that's the word that you and I are kind of coming back to. We may have had long-winded ways of saying whatever, but in the end of the day, it's all information. Somebody wants an edge. They want the insight. They want to know if somebody's heard. Or here's this one. I used to get these all the time when I was on Patriots Radio Network. How bad is someone, right? Like, oh, he's got a shoulder. How bad is it? Because I think handicappers and people that bet know that there are guys out there that aren't playing at 100%. And if you know that a really good team has got a left tackle with a bum wheel, but the guy's going to play, that can affect the sack props. It can affect your total. Like, there's a lot there in terms of knowing, because what they'll do is just put the left tackle's got a shoulder injury. Okay, but what kind of shoulder injury? Because they're not all made the same. That's where the NFL's tried to leave a gray area, and the NHL too. NHL's even worse. It's either an upper body injury or a lower body injury, and that's it. And it's up to the beat reporters to kind of dig in and figure out how bad it is in that league because they're so afraid of it.
And the final thing I'll say, right? Harbaugh and the Baltimore Ravens were fined $100,000 for misdisclosing Lamar Jackson's injury a couple weeks back, where they said he was full practice, but he was really with the practice squad and really should have been designated questionable. But the point being, right? all the action that came in when Lamar was not playing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Didn't matter. Ravens won and covered. So sometimes, don't matter what you know, Vegas crushed on the Ravens and Snoop Huntley that day.
Yeah, as they should have. So, yeah, it's interesting. Lamar was a full go on the practice squad, like running scout, not he was full go,
you
ready
know what
to
you're
come
doing,
back.
Johnny Harbaugh.
Oh, they do. Listen, remember when they would bitch all the time about Belichick? And remember the trick play where they essentially had Shane Vereen as the right tackle is really what it was. And Harbaugh went nuts and was screaming about illegal formation. They went back and it was like, nope, you got punked, dude. That's just kind of the way it is. After last night, we are now at the halfway point of the regular season in the National Football League. And Jay, I'll tell you, when you look at the standings right now, there are shockers across the board, in my opinion. Indianapolis leads the South. Are you kidding me? New England has the lead in the East. Denver is the leader of the AFC West. Is this just temporary, or is this the fate this year of some teams, Jay, like Kansas City or Baltimore, to where you're just fighting to climb into a wild card spot against some of these teams that none of us, let's be real. If someone said to us at the beginning of the year, the leaders of the divisions would be Indianapolis, New England, Denver, and Pittsburgh, a lot of people would have scoffed and said, you're smoking dope.
That's definitely fair. But I also think if you just go team by team, right? I don't think that, if we start at the bottom with the Steelers, right? Steelers at 5-3, we're more surprised by the Bengals and Ravens, but you could argue a little bit of injury bug there. I don't think we're surprised at the Broncos being great this year, just more surprised maybe that the Chiefs are 5-4, whatever they are, right? Patriots, I think maybe have overachieved slightly, but I guess I'm not as surprised by the Colts as some. But Gresh, what I'll say about this league, right? For those that are not professional football fans, I genuinely feel sorry for you, because to me, it's the NFL and everything just pales in comparison. In this league built on parity, I feel like, Gresh, through 9 weeks, this may be the best we've had in terms of it being so wide open. I do believe that the cream may rise to the top, right? And ultimately, for example, if the Baltimore Ravens are in this tournament at the end, maybe they're the team to beat, getting really healthy on defense, right? Certainly, do I like the Buffalo Bills against the Patriots in the future matchups, whether it's the regular season matchup or the postseason? I probably do. So I think there's a good chance the cream will still rise. But the Patriots took a little bit of a step back yesterday, and we'll get to New England specifically. And so did the Colts take a step back this weekend, right? And so ultimately, I do believe when it comes down to it, we joked about the Indianapolis Colts being the 1 seed, having a bye, and then you have Lamar Jackson or Patrick Mahomes coming to town, and you're 5-point underdogs in your playoff games, and you go home 0-1 in the postseason. I think it's a very realistic possibility for a lot of these teams. See Sam Darnold and the Vikings last season in the NFC. So I still think it is absolutely wide open. It's just why I love this league so much, Gresh. Like we could go on and on about the stories of all these individual teams. I think it's so wide open.
Well, and I love the way you position that it is wide open, because when you think about the playoff matchups, and if I said it's Pittsburgh, it's Buffalo at Pittsburgh, the LA Chargers at Denver, Jacksonville at New England, you could talk yourself into all 3 of those road teams having legitimate chances to go on the road and get a win. And that normally isn't the case in those, and it might be the case in the 2-7 matchup when it's kind of all said and done, and you still have Kansas City and Baltimore on the outside. So I'm not thinking ahead too far. I am happy that the Patriots are in the position they're in. It's a good problem to have. But boy, to think about Kansas City as a wild card team coming into Gillette on the first weekend is a little harrowing, right? So that's kind of like when I think of,
and I'm going to stop you there.
Go
ahead. The rub. That is the rub this season. I'm telling you, it's like like all these teams that we're looking at, Indianapolis, Denver, the first round playoff matchups are going to be bananas this year.
Yeah.
Don't you believe Kansas City and Baltimore finding a way in somehow or
Oh,
another?
100%. 100%. And then it's who gets bumped, right? Is it just Jacksonville and the Chargers? Because I don't think Baltimore, when it comes, let me just click on the division here. Yeah, Baltimore is quote unquote only 2 games back in the division, but they're also 1-0 in the division. So, they still have all those games in front of them to be able to rack up AFC wins and get those divisional wins. I think the team that has kind of surprised me, Jay, is Denver. And the reason being is I don't know how good they really truly are, because they're winning a lot of close games and against some bad teams, right? The Jets 13-11. They beat the Giants 33-32. They need a walk-off field goal to beat the Texans 18-15. Here's what I'm starting to think about the Denver Broncos, is that they play to the opponent. And that's not a good sign. Like, that's not a sign of a good football team.
Good point.
So, for example, they beat Philadelphia 21-17. I think they beat the Bengals with Burrow 28-3, or maybe that was the first game without Burrow, now that I think of it. But there was the New England Patriots Tom Brady way of winning close games, Jay. And then there is you escaped winning a close game. And I feel like for Denver this year, they have more escaped in winning close games than they have been definitive and solid and played great in those games to get a close win.
Yeah, well put. They'll have an opportunity Thursday night, home to the Raiders.
We may get to that
favorites.
game. We may get to that one a little bit later. I know we got picks coming up.
So, the Patriots.
Yeah.
How do you watch the game in its entirety?
Oh God, yeah. Not only do I watch the game, I break down plays for TV every week. So yeah, I'm honed in, especially when it comes to because there's a lot of nuanced things that I like to watch during games, line scrimmage stuff and things like that.
So, lot for me to sort of chew on in this game. Certainly happy they emerged victorious, but felt like a little bit of a step back for me. And what I'll say briefly before I'll get into some detail later, I like adversity in a regular season. I like, even had they lost, I would have thought perhaps that would help be a nice bump. So I like this kind of bump in the road, and I like it even more that they were able to emerge victorious. But it was a bad day, kind of. Go ahead.
Yeah, I feel where you're going with it, and I think I know how to present at least part of it to you. I picked Atlanta on TV, and the reason I did was because weird things happened with the Falcons, right? So, look at Cody. Look at Cody pulling it up right away.
Okay,
how about that?
I'm not even listening anymore. I'm not even listening. And who is the young lady with you, Andrew?
That is Morgan Weaver. She's been there like 3 weeks. So
love it. Look at Gresh cleaning up well. Cody, don't get. I mean, what do we get? We get a sweatshirt here on gas. Come on, Gresh, I'm all fired up. You look great. I'm going to lose my voice again. Woo! Go ahead.
No, but I picked Atlanta because weird things happen. What I didn't realize was that the weird thing would happen to benefit New England in terms of Atlanta getting, some momentum, and then the guy misses the PAT, and it just took the steam out of that whole football team. Can I tell you why I think you went the way you did with maybe this wasn't the best performance overall? To me, Jay, this was the first game this year where I've talked about how Drake Maye has stacked games one on top of another and gotten better. This felt like the first game he ran in place. That's the best way I can put it. He didn't go backwards. He didn't pull ahead. He didn't necessarily stack a day, but it felt like he was running in place in the position that he was in. And I felt the same way you did. I was like, well, they won, but it didn't feel like a really good win. It felt like more of the, hey, we made this tougher on ourselves than it needed to be. And you got to give Atlanta credit. They, offensively, bro, weapon-wise, they're better than we could take the last 3 opponents combined and take the best of all their offensive players. And it probably doesn't touch the skill of what Atlanta rolled in with on Sunday.
I agree. And in terms of giving Atlanta credit, The defense, right? I mean, it's one of the best defenses in football on paper going in. And I think this Patriots game gave Atlanta some juice. Michael Penix found something. He found some confidence after a while. I think it's crucial for him to use his legs. Drake London should be that dude every other week, if not every week, And so you're certainly going against a good football team, right? Patriots limited without Ramondre Stevenson, most certainly. I like what Jennings did a little bit, but for Drake Maye, I actually do think it was a little tiny bit of a step back. Certainly his worst day this season. He's been so perfect. We've been a little bit spoiled. He misses a throw and we're like, what? I'm like, what do you mean, Drake? You haven't missed a throw since week 3. Are you going to miss throws again? 19 out of 29, 2 touchdowns, 1 interceptions, 2 fumbles, only one of them lost. But toward the end of the first half, I think there was a little bit of a mental breakdown when he had that fumble lost and it resulted in the Atlanta touchdown. And I think Drake struggled a little bit turning the page from that. I think that the leadership in New England with McDaniels and Vrabel, I think have put him in a great position to be able to turn the page. And I think he'll be able to turn the page this week. But I don't think in that game he was able to turn the page. I think he was a little shaken by that. I think sometimes for young players playing at home can be a little nerve-wracking to a certain extent. And because this offensive line is giving up so many sacks, right? 16 sacks the last 3 weeks. That's going to get you a little gun shy, despite making all your good reads and breakdown, and going through your whatever.
Progressions.
I've done enough. Thank you. That's the word.
No, but you know what? It also, too, the running backs are, and Cody threw it in the chat, without Ramondre and pass protection, you're also calling things a little differently from a formation standpoint. Like I mentioned it last week, we haven't seen Drake Maye stand back and shotgun and just go 5 wide.
Right.
So even with Ramondre down, they didn't really change it very much. It was more of the let's keep doing the play action stuff. We'll find a way to run the ball. And that's to me where Drake Maye is really settled in. The reason I haven't gone, I've loved what he's done this year, but the reason I haven't gone completely over the moon with the kid is I still need to see him operate in empty sets. This is where Josh McDaniels kind of force-feeding Drake Maye the way he thinks he needs to didn't turn into, well, we don't have Ramondre, let me go to 5 wide. It was, nope, this is what we do. We'll just go next man up. We'll keep doing it because the kid in play action is pretty damn good. So don't overturn the apple cart. But if it's his mistake, if he throws the pick, Drake Maye, that's one thing. When your backside gets a little leaky, then you start to kind of do the old Indiana Jones and you're looking over the shoulder. And I think there was a tiny bit of that in the third quarter. That's a good observation by you.
And I will say, not unlike in MMA, I think a loss can propel you moving forward. Like I talked about boxer Montavious Ware off the top. His opponent, Alexander Schenk, was so tough that night. Would have fucked up a lot of people that night. He just ran into a pure, unbelievable boxer. And so I think sometimes in professional sports, there's an ebb and flow. And I think that losing, I was almost happy when Drake fumbled toward the end of the first half, because even though I believe them to be a contender this season in a way maybe I didn't early in the year, I'm almost rooting for him to have these sort of growing pains, awful moments to prevent them happening in the biggest of spots in January.
No doubt about it. And I didn't want to lead with the joke, so I wanted to say no doubt about it before I went. Whenever Drake fumbled, I turned and looked at Cardi B and said,
dude, how about Cardi B?
Drake might not be getting that WAP tonight because he fumbled. God. That's my favorite song ever. Do you know
your
what
impersonation
it
is so good?
For?
You're making me like Bob Kraft less.
I'll tell you, when Cardi popped out that belly, people thought maybe Big Bob was the one that did that. But instead, it was my man, Steph. He walks in the room dick first.
Dude.
I've actually heard him say that before.
I bet.
He walks in the room dick first.
So in terms of these 3 picks, for those of you that haven't been on Gas before today, we appreciate everyone following us at Gas Morning Drive. So we make 3 picks against the spread every week, and we go head to head against each other, a gold, silver, and bronze pick. And so the one thing that I don't have, Gresh, is our point total, right? So the gold pick, you get 3 points. The silver pick, you get 2, and bronze, you get 1.
Oh, so we have to do mathy math.
Began this. Yeah, and I can do it moving forward, but through week 7, you're 6-3 against the spread. I'm 5-4. But right, I didn't track.
But waited, I think you hit your gold medal play last week, didn't you? Like you only hit 1, but you hit the gold medal play for 3 points. I think I might have hit bronze and silver for 3 points.
See, I think you hit gold and silver last week, and I only hit bronze, but I don't.
Okay.
Either way, maybe Cody can chase that. But moving forward, we will keep track of points as well. Right?
I like it.
So despite our records of 6-3 and 5-4, we won't pay as much attention to that once we get that point total. You feel me? It'll be sort of our point total that'll drive it. So one thing I want to say, or a couple of things I want to ask you. We haven't come up with a punishment yet. Do you drink beer?
No.
Never, won't, ever, allergic?
Not my, no, not my thing. I just find the taste gross. I'm more of like whiskey and ginger ale with lime kind of guy.
All right, so here's where I was going with this, and then maybe we could do wine coolers. But I was going to propose. Do you know what a power hour is?
So a power hour is that like the 9 hot dogs with a beer every inning type deal?
So that's funny. A power hour, at least in my world, is a shot of beer every minute for 1 hour. Right, works out 7 or 8 beers. So I was going to propose that the loser of this show does a power hour during the show.
I'm down.
We're literally, okay. So you can do wine, cooler, beer, whatever it is, right? And so literally it'll be a shot glass and probably a 6-pack where every minute it's 1 shot of beer.
Yep.
For the loser of this challenge on said episode. Does that work for you?
Yeah, I dig. I like it. I like it how Cody has put in it's brutal in the studio chat.
And I think it would be great to watch. Maybe not all the networks would be approving of that particular thing. Apparently not allowed to drink alcohol in the air, but it doesn't matter on Cast Morning Drive. So, Bone, maybe we'll figure out the points. But either way, Gresh, you have a 6-3 lead. I'm 6-3. I'm 5-4. So I feel it's only appropriate to let you make the first selection this week.
And just quickly, Cody did throw some points in there from last week. I hit on the 49ers and the Raiders for 5 points. Yep. You had the Bills. That was a 1-pointer. Yep. For the bronze, I'm going back to the Raiders. Denver wins close games. I know it is the Raiders on the road on a short week. Normally those games are close and unders. That is a massive number for the Raiders. I understand why, but give me Las Vegas plus 8.5 at the close playing Denver Broncos.
I like that. And I will be interested to see. These Thursday night games are such wild cards. They've settled down a little bit, but a lot of underdogs have won outright on Thursday night. So I absolutely like taking those points there. And the Raiders are competing, if nothing else. So, and to your point, right? Look at these Denver scores, right? 13-11, 18-15.
They play down to people.
There. Yeah. I like it very much. My bronze medal selection, which I guess is my 3rd best play on the NFL board against the spread, I'm taking the Jacksonville Jaguars plus 1.5 at the Houston Texans. And I do not like betting on the Jaguars. I do not like Trevor Lawrence. I want to tell you that, first of all. This is a little bit of a Davis Mills fade. CJ Stroud out with a concussion last week. I don't know if he's going to play or not. I'm sort of assuming not at 3-5. They are desperate, so maybe he does play. But this particular play early in the week is I'm sort of hoping that Davis Mills is going to be the guy, and maybe even the Jaguars become favored in this game here. So I think that was a really big loss at home against Denver. And if CJ Stroud had been out there at the end, maybe they do win. Davis Mills looked like me out there. I talked about not liking Trevor Lawrence, but I like how Jacksonville found a way to win against a competitive Raiders team last week. They win 30-29 at 5-3. I think they can smell 6-3. You're looking up at a Colts team who just lost, but it's very competitive. I said, I think ultimately if Stroud doesn't play, the Jaguars are going to be favored here. So maybe I'm jumping early on a line. I think Liam Cohen is very much like a hot or cold guy. And sometimes I like betting on him, sometimes against him. I think he gets them their 2nd straight road win here. They're in a stretch here where they play 4 road games in 5 weeks. I think they're sort of in this road dog mode. I think they keep it rolling here. So my bronze selection, Jacksonville Jaguars, plus 1.5 at the Houston Texans.
I like it. I almost went with that, quite honestly. I was handicapping that one right along with you as well. I have a lot of the same thoughts. The only thing that freaks me out about this game is, to me, Jacksonville should be favored, and there's a line in Casino Security, JDRL, just doesn't look right, and that is this game and the point spread. That's the only thing that kind of has me freaked out.
Hey, can I interrupt you real quick? Speaking
Please.
of just doesn't look right.
Yeah.
We were both on the Colts last week on this program.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the only bet you lost last week. And there's a reason why you made it your bronze and not your silver or gold. And what I want you to know is just doesn't look right. By the time Saturday rolled around, everybody loved the Colts so much that I went to the window on the Pittsburgh Steelers to go against the grain. It just didn't look right. Aaron Rodgers at home as an underdog with this underachieving defense that maybe can get it right against Daniel Jones and company, maybe being a little bit elevated. It just felt like one of those spots where the National Football League sort of flexes their muscle a little bit. And so anyway, I just wanted to tell you that a pick that I liked on our show on Tuesday, Wednesday, I felt the total opposite way come Saturday.
It's amazing whenever there's the public avalanche to one side, and then you're like, nah, I got to go Oppo here. And that's good instincts by you. My instincts tell me that the Dolphins are about to crumble. They fired their general manager. You and I are doing this on NFL trade deadline day. I believe Miami already flipped Jalen Phillips. So I think the reason they fired the general manager was to liquidate the assets. So I'm going to say that in Miami this week, Jay, there's going to be a lot of looking in the mirror. And then once we get to Wednesday, there's going to be a lot of dudes who are going to be like, wow, I can't believe I made it. And they're still on this roster. And then they got to go deal with a Buffalo team who has put together 2 pretty good performances in a row. Yeah, I'll lay all those 9.5 points. That's code. It should be Bills minus 9.5.
Yeah, I'll gobble up those.
I was just saying, you're going to give me the Bills and 9.5 on, nice on CodyBets.com. I'm downloading that app right now and locking it in there. But no, I just think the Dolphins are a sad sack right now. On this week, there are going to be a lot of guys who are either looking around, wishing they were elsewhere, or just happy to be there. And the Bills are going down there with a mission, in my opinion.
Oh, I love that, Gresh. You know, the Bills go down to Carolina off the bye and stomp the Panthers. You go home and you beat the Kansas City Chiefs. It is interesting. And I think, gave out Bills last week, but just the Bills, they're going to own the Chiefs. And then Patrick Mahomes is going to eliminate you for the 5th year in the postseason this year.
It'll be great.
Right?
And it might happen in Buffalo with them having Kansas City having to go up there and beat them there again, all outside that nice new stadium, and then they go lose an AFC title game to the same guy again. It'd be great. Screw Buffalo.
There's no way Buffalo goes and gives one back down here in South Beach. My silver medal selection for Week 10 in the National Football League, I'm going with the Vikings at home +3 and a hook versus the Baltimore Ravens. I think I like the Ravens to win, but I'm drinking the J.J. McCarthy Kool-Aid. And I tell you, a lot of sharp minds were on the Lions last week, and I thought they were going to roll, and J.J. McCarthy, he raises the ceiling for this team. Maybe we don't know what J.J. McCarthy is going to be, but he makes them a contender because he believes in himself. He makes the whole locker room, whole organization believe in themselves. So for me, I think they got a great chance to make this a competitive football game at home against Baltimore. And what are the Ravens? 2-6, right? Or 2-5. They still are what your record says you are. A little bit of extra time here for Baltimore. But I think the Vikings, that quarterback position is really the wild card. And if that is less of a wild card and more of a sure thing with J.J. McCarthy, I like their chances here. They got Aaron Jones involved a little bit. The last time Brian Flores faced Lamar Jackson was a while ago in 2021, but it was very aggressive, a bunch of cover 0 blitzes. I think he had a quarterback rating 73-6. Victory for the Dolphins was 22-10 that day. So I do think Brian Flores can have some things for Lamar Jackson. I expect a competitive game here. And I think perhaps the Vikings are going to believe in themselves and believe in their chances to win outright. So I'll take the 3.5.
Yeah, that's I like the way you laid that out. I am not as big on McCarthy or Minnesota really this year. There were a lot of people who were picking them to, maybe be the pick to click in the NFC. I just didn't and don't see it. It's a real danger spot against the Ravens here for the Vikings. And the reason I say it's a danger spot for Minnesota is you have a defensive coordinator who is familiar with Baltimore, but you don't see this kind of crossover every year. So for Minnesota, it's been a couple years since you've seen Lamar. Now you hope that kind of goes the other way in the favor of Minnesota. I think I'm on the other side of this one with you, brother. And you
That makes
mentioned
sense.
what's that?
It makes sense, and as you talk through it, you can be sure I second guess, and there's the Ravens defense as healthy as it's been all year.
Uh-huh. I'm going to go my gold medal play. You mentioned Detroit, brother, and I am on them this week. A lot like Miami, you lose a wide receiver, you lose your quarterback the way you did, that hideous elbow pop on Jaden Daniels. The Commanders are going to be a completely different team. And there's no way emotionally that they don't get hit in losing Jaden Daniels. They're definitely gonna. Dan Quinn's got a hard week of work this week to get his team ready, not only for Detroit, but doing it without Daniels. I just think it throws the Commanders into a tailspin. I know it's Detroit going on the road. I'd feel even better if it were Detroit at home. But Detroit -8.5 against a team that lost their starting quarterback and a big wide receiver. Thanks a bunch. I'll take that all day long on Detroit.
Oh, Lions by 1 million, right? Off a loss at home against the Vikings that I'm sure they're not happy about at all. I love Detroit this week. And to your point, the way the elbow gets injured, right? That's pretty jarring. And then Dan Quinn having him out there in a 38-7 ball game in the first place. I know he came back and said something, but look, Dan Quinn has been up against it for a while as a football coach, right? I think Chris Sims talked about just sort of the remedial nature of his defenses and a lack of evolution on that side of the ball in terms of calling, plays. The 28-3 is on his resume. I think they caught lightning in a bottle a little bit last year to a certain extent. People are ready for Jaden Daniels. You got to be healthy too in this league. Cliff Kingsbury certainly has his moments as an offensive coordinator, but I think they're the oldest team in football. Absolute fucking yikes in the capital city.
No
Right?
question. And I think your gold medal play will bring today's discussion on gas to an end, because we did not touch on the upcoming game for the New England Patriots, but you will.
So I just think the Patriots wagon comes to a halt down here in Florida. Tampa Bay coming in off a bye week, hosting the Patriots -2.5. I like the number. Without that failed extra point, I think the Patriots sort of find a way to lose last week. They only scored 3 points in the second half. They were sort of, fading away. The defense, maybe bent more than broke. And look, it's not going to shock me if the Patriots rally around this poor performance and play a really good game. And I do believe the Patriots, when they play well in all three phases, are very tough to beat in this league. I don't know if Christian Gonzalez is going to play. I think that's a big component here. Chris Godwin on the other side may play. Bucky Irving may play. Luke Gadecki, who's a right guard. Maybe you haven't heard the name, but in week 2, he went out. He's a big piece for Tampa Bay. They've been sort of banged up all year. They're starting to get a little bit healthier, especially off a bye. Baker Mayfield, who's been banged up all year, I think is going to be healthy. So I think in a way, I saw some kinks in the Patriots' armor on Sunday. And I think traveling down here, I just like Tampa Bay in this spot quite a bit. The scheduling spot against a cross-conference opponent here. And I'm sort of basing this a little bit on the Patriots, what they showed me in the second half. They need to show me something a little bit. If you're telling me the Patriots come down here and get to 8-2, I think they're going to have to play really their best game of the season. I'm not sure they have it in them in this spot. I feel like sometimes your team the best. I've been on the Patriots every week. I was on them last week. I really think they should have blown Atlanta out, despite I think Drake Maye sort of getting punched in the mouth a little bit by spitting the football there. I just think the Patriots might get blown out here, and this may not be the game of the week that everyone has circled. So I like the Buccaneers, my best play of the week, -2.5.
Yeah, I very much waffled with putting this pick in my lineup because I lean with you in terms of I think the Buccaneers win this game and cover what is a skinny number. Look, you 36 games this season. Okay, now this is just overall in the NFL. 36 games this season have featured a game-winning score in the final 3 minutes of the fourth quarter or overtime, which is tied with 2015 for the second most through 9 weeks since the merger, going all the way back to 1970, right? So we're seeing games that are closer than ever. 14 games have featured a walk-off field goal as time expired in the fourth quarter. This could end up being another one of those on this list where they play it close. Jay, I think the thing for me is I don't like the matchup of the Tampa wide receivers against the Patriots corners, especially if Gonzo isn't there. And You know what got me last week on this was Drake London, I think it was, or whomever it was. I think it was London, catching the touchdown over Marcus Jones. Marcus Jones didn't have bad coverage. He was just 6 inches shorter than the other guy. And when you high point it with hands in the air, it's even more ground to make up that just Marcus Jones is not going to be able to. And when I think of that group of wide receivers down there in Tampa, and they're good, they know how to get open, they're good route runners, they understand the nuance that some of these youngs might not. That's the part in this game that really freaks me out because, listen, here's the thing about Baker Mayfield. He, to me, is the closest thing to Tom Brady in this respect. If you don't drive the stake through his heart and kill him on the field, he will keep battling until the very, very end. They're never out. It was just like Tom Brady. They're never out of a game. And Baker Mayfield is nowhere near as talented as Tom Brady was as a quarterback. But boy, does that guy have a giant set of just balls on him. And that also, it's the stuff we've been looking for with Drake Maye. Give me a little bit of that Baker Mayfield. And, he hasn't been in the position yet. Maybe this is one of them. But the wide receivers and just the never say die attitude of Baker Mayfield scare the hell out of me this weekend.
One thing I will say about Baker, right? You talk about talent, right? I could actually make an argument he's got more on-field talent than Brady, but in the brain is where Baker, to me, always is that wild card. And everybody's giving Baker his flowers this year, but just wait until the postseason in a big spot when he throws that bonehead pick that eliminates his team from the postseason. I hate to say it. And that's one of the reasons why I've put Drake Maye on a pedestal a little bit. Yeah, he had a little bit of a fumble, whatever it is, but Drake Maye is a very good, smart quarterback, really not prone to some of these bonehead plays. So I do believe if New England can get Baker off his sort of game, throw some things to surprise him a little bit, turn him over a little bit, that maybe is the opportunity there. And I will say perhaps the Patriots having a shitty game could have them supremely focused. So we'll see.
No, I think Vrabel, there's a lot for him to sink his teeth into. But I just got some of the stat pack numbers in terms of some of the trends connected to this game. Baker Mayfield is 20-31-1 ATS as a favorite in his career. Now that number doesn't look very good, but he's 10-8 ATS with the Bucs in that spot as a favorite. So in Cleveland, it felt like as a favorite he had no chance. With the Bucs, there's at least almost a 500 record, which is right in line with what the handicappers really want. Patriots are 4-0 outright and ATS on the road this year. How about Drake Maye? I didn't know this nugget. 7-3 ATS in his career on the road. You wouldn't have thought that, given the year that they had last year. But I'm excited. You know what, brother? I want a shootout. And you know why? Put the kid up against Baker, right? Let's see, and have to go to some of those empty sets and maybe away from play action a little bit. I do and am intellectually curious as to how they would call it if you're down 21 and you got to find a way to win. What does Josh McDaniels go to, right? Because with Brady and others, we know we're going to spread them out, we're going to throw the ball. But if they get down 21-0, is it going to be the same thing with the kid back there? Do they feel like they can put him in that spot and him not regress?
You just reminded me at the end of the game when the Patriots ran the ball twice and then they had that third down opportunity where if they got a first down, they were able to end the game and go into victory formation. And Jason McCourty made a comment on the broadcast. I'd probably just run it here. Drake been a little shaky. I'm paraphrasing. And I just very much respect McDaniels and Vrabel's conviction in that spot to go ahead and win the football game. It would have been very against the fabric of them to not throw the football in the spot. So I'm very glad that they did that. And then one other thing I just want to mention to you and get your thoughts on real quick. We're out of here, but I'm strongly considering driving to Tampa Bay and going to this football game on Sunday. What do you think?
You should. You should.
Right?
Well, I'll tell you. Have you seen a game at Raymond James?
I have.
Okay, nice stadium, very nice, nice building.
Yeah, yes,
easy.
Yes.
Easy. Like the stuff that I evaluate. Nice stadium, good food, easy parking. That's another one. Went to Acusure for a pit game a couple of weeks ago. Jesus, I had flop sweats. I had to walk a mile.
So real quick, if you were me, you just going Ticketmaster right now? What are you doing?
Honestly, I don't know if you'd be able to go to the box office, but boy, if they got box office available, that's the way to go. I'll tell you why. You go on Ticketmaster, you're getting jacked up and you're paying a $20 fee.
Yeah.
If you are assuming some risk, no question. However, you're a man of the check cashing business and tickets and if there's something that I know you'd be able to pull off, it would be to find the most expensive way into that building. So
see, that's what's happening as I get older is that regardless of my bankroll, I really don't want to. I want to invest in really good seats. So
I'm
thinking about making an investment here.
Well, you know what I was going to say. I would say do it. I love Raymond James Stadium. Is one of my the very first Super Bowl I covered was at Raymond James Stadium. So
I love we got tickets.
Oh, look at this! You can get over there. You can get there. I mean, I'm not saying it's going to be lightly attended. I'm sure that there will still be quite a crowd, but I would feel pretty good that you might be able to go to the old box office and save yourself some fees by getting a ticket there.
I love it. I got to do it. All right, we got to get out of here.
Get us out of brother. Here, I know, bro. We by the way, Jacoby Myers has been traded.
To whom?
The Jacksonville Jaguars. Jalen Phillips goes to Philly. Draymond Jones is now in Baltimore. Logan Wilson of Dallas, I believe, or just got traded to Dallas. Yair Alexander's going to Philadelphia. Michael Carter II's going to Philadelphia. Fuck Philadelphia, man. I think San Francisco got a steal in Keon White. John Mechie III. I thought that guy was going to click in the NFL. He's done squadouche. He's now with the Giants. Kyle Duggar is now with Pittsburgh. And who knows where other players are going to be by the end of today with the trade deadline. Will New England add anyone? I'm going to say no. And not because they're not interested in people, Jay, but I think the draft pick compensation will get a little rich for them. And I think there's going to be tremendous competition. Like, I would love to know who was in it for Jacoby Myers, because unless there's a wide receiver out of the blue, like John Mechie doesn't move the needle at all. Like Jacoby Myers comes in and fits in your offense right away. He's a plug-and-play guy. Will there be another plug-and-play kind of wide receiver like Myers traded here to someone before the deadline?
Am I nuts for not feeling like that's a position of need and wanting Kyle Williams to get the opportunity if that opportunity presents itself?
Jay, it's like you're reading my mind, bro. I chastised everybody on TV the other night. I said at the beginning of the year, none of y'all out there wanted these wide receivers. What group is being complained about the least? The wide receivers. Why? Because they're getting better with a competent offensive coordinator. Just same as quarterback. Exact same growth curve on the wide receivers as well. And I know that Diggs is a true number one, but look at the guys who were the incumbents. And Jay, I'm 100% with you. I'm not saying they have excess in that room, but my goodness gracious, I think there's the thought of if Jacoby Myers came here, then you wouldn't need Pop, and then you can have Myers as the slot guy and then fit him in and all that stuff. I think these guys are doing a fine job. I
also think they have unique roles, like Booty.
Yeah.
We need him healthy. But I really like how that room. I just like collectively and individually.
Hey, bro, I'll tell you what, just real quickly, because you and I are of that age, right? When you think of the wide receiver group that was Givens, Branch, Brown, and Patton, thank you. If that is, the role, like
rest in peace. Sorry,
David Givens is like Booty is in the role of David Givens. Pop is in the role of Troy Brown right now. You know what I mean? They're just sort of retrofitting or fitting in the new guys into the old retro offense. And if you think about the role that Branch and Brown and Givens played in particular, you could take Diggs, Booty, and probably Pop, in my opinion. And there's kind of your, in the mind of Josh, hey, this is what it was like when we were here in the early 2000s with these other wide receivers, at least in my mind anyway. But at least we got it in that Jakobi Meyers has been traded, not to New England. He is headed to Jacksonville. Jacksonville has Travis Hunter, and they got Thomas
on injured reserve.
And now they go and get Myers. The running back Etienne's pretty good at catching it out of the backfield. I'm just trying to think about what the hell is Liam Cohen trying to build down there.
I hope someone's coming after Brian Thomas Jr., right? Certain wide receivers, right? I would be happy. Right? You're telling me number 7's coming to New England?
I'll take a chance on that, dog. No question. I think that's yep. And I think it's driven Liam crazy a little bit on trying to either connect with the guy or get him right. But you're right. That's a buy low candidate next year if Jacksonville gets a little disenfranchised with him. All right. I know we've gone massive into overtime here. We got to run. Jakobi Meyers is gone. He ain't coming to New England. Next week, will we be sitting here talking about new players or just a win or loss to Tampa? That's why you got to come back next week for gas. For Jay, I'm Gresh. We'll see you next week.